What if the secret to getting everything you want is to stop trying so hard to control it? Sounds counterintuitive, right? But stay with me, because what you're about to discover might just flip your entire approach to life upside down. Life has a curious way of teaching us its deepest lessons not through force, but through surrender. The more we try to grip every detail, how things unfold when they happen, how people respond, the more drained, anxious, and disappointed we feel. We chase outcomes with clenched fists, convinced that if we just push harder, plan more precisely, hustle non-stop, eventually, things will go our way. But what if the opposite is true? What if the real power lies not in control, but in release? Not in tightening our grip, but in loosening it. The moment you stop forcing, stop chasing, and start trusting, something incredible begins to happen. Life flows, things click, peace enters. This doesn't mean giving up or becoming passive. It means recognizing a powerful truth. Your energy is best spent where it matters, on what you can actually shape, not on battling the uncontrollable. The Stoic philosophers understood this long ago. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, warrior, thinker, wrote about the quiet strength of accepting what comes naturally, of not wasting energy fighting the inevitable. He knew that trying to bend reality to your will only brings suffering. The true battleground, it's within. It's about mastering your mind, training it to focus, adapt, and let go when needed. And that's exactly what this video is about. Not just another surface-level self-help message, but a deeper mindset shift that can redefine how you pursue success, handle relationships, and protect your peace. If you've been feeling like no matter how hard you try, nothing seems to align, there's a reason. You might be clinging too tightly to things that were never meant to be controlled in the first place. So today, we're not just talking about ambition, we're talking about alignment. We're talking about how to move through life with calm confidence instead of endless pressure. How to stop chasing and start attracting. How to stop grasping and start growing. And here's my promise. If you stick with me until the end of this episode, you won't just walk away inspired. You'll walk away with a powerful new lens, one that shows you how to manifest what you desire. Not through desperation, but through clarity and inner strength. But before we dive in, I have one small, meaningful request. If you find value in this content, if it speaks to something inside you, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It takes less than a second, but it helps this message reach more people who truly need it. All right, let's begin. We spend so much of our time obsessing over results, waiting for that perfect job offer, hoping that relationship finally works out, stressing over whether all our effort will ever pay off. We keep telling ourselves, just one more push, one more grind, one more sacrifice, and then I'll finally be happy. But is that really how life works? Or is there another way? Let's find out. We convince ourselves that if we just push a bit harder, hustle a little more, and force things into place, we can finally get what we want. But what happens instead? The more we fixate on a specific outcome, the more anxious we become. The journey stops feeling enjoyable, and our happiness becomes dangerously tied to something completely out of our control. And that right there is where we trap ourselves. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology ever caught up. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic minds, taught a powerful truth. We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our attachment to how we think things should go. He advised, don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to, Wish for them to happen as they do happen, and your life will flow more peacefully. In other words, true peace doesn't come from bending life to your expectations. It comes from aligning with what is and responding wisely. So instead of tying your sense of fulfillment to a single result, focus on what you can control. Your actions, your discipline, your mindset. Let go of the rest. Imagine an artist painting a masterpiece. If they obsess over making each brushstroke flawless, worrying about how it will be received or whether it's good enough, they freeze. Creativity disappears. But if that same artist lets go of the outcome and dives fully into the act of painting itself, immersed, present, unburdened, something magical happens. The flow takes over. The work becomes effortless. And ironically, that's when they create their best art. This principle doesn't just apply to creativity, it's true for everything. Your career, your relationships, your personal growth. When you let go of rigid expectations, you make room to enjoy the present moment. And in that space, life flows better. Take relationships, for instance. Have you ever seen someone trying too hard to win someone over? Their energy feels forced, anxious, almost desperate. And what's the result? It usually pushes people away. Now contrast that with someone who's confident, grounded, and fully at ease with themselves. They aren't fixated on how the interaction will end. They trust that what's meant to unfold will unfold. That calm detachment is magnetic. Why? Because they're not acting from fear or lack, they're embodying trust. That's the quiet strength of letting go. Now let's talk about success. Too many people believe that if they don't hit a certain milestone by a specific age, or if life doesn't follow a perfect timeline, they've failed. They treat life like a checklist. Graduate by 22. Earn 6 figures by 30. Be married by 35. And when reality doesn't match the plan, they spiral. Self-doubt creeps in. They feel behind, broken, or lost. But here's the truth. Success is not a straight line, and it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all timeline. So if life isn't a rigid checklist, then what is it? It's a winding journey full of twists, setbacks, and unexpected gifts that appear when you least expect them. But here's the thing. If you're gripping too tightly onto one fixed outcome, you might miss something even better that life is trying to hand you. Take a quiet moment. Ask yourself, what am I holding onto too tightly right now? Is it a specific goal, a certain expectation, an idea of how things should unfold? And what is that tight grip costing you? Stress, frustration, sleepless nights. Now imagine what might happen if you released that grip just a little. Not in defeat, not in giving up, but in trusting that whatever unfolds, you will find your way. That's the heart of detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing everything to go a particular way just to feel calm or at peace. So, how do we actually practice this in everyday life? Start with a simple daily reminder. You don't control the outcome. What you do control is your effort, your focus, your discipline, and your mindset. These are the things within your domain, the rest is not. Next, shift the language of your thoughts. Instead of saying, I need this to happen, try thinking, whatever happens, I'll grow from it. It's a subtle shift, but it's the kind that changes everything. Finally, anchor yourself in the present moment, because the more fully you live here and now, the less power the uncertain future has over your peace of mind. Let's be honest, life will test you. Some days, everything flows. You're in sync with the world. Other days, It feels like everything is against you. But here's the key difference. The people who crumble under pressure and the people who rise through it. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's mindset. Your mind, if left untrained, will run wild, spiraling into fear, doubt, and overwhelm. But if you learn to guide it, to calm it, to reframe how you see challenge, you become unstoppable. You can't control the economy. You can't control what other people do. You can't prevent unexpected setbacks. But you can control how you respond. And that, right there, is where your real power lives. When you move from reactive thinking to intentional response, everything shifts. As the great psychologist William James once said, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." And that's exactly what Stoic philosophy teaches. You don't have to believe every thought your mind serves up. You don't have to let every hard moment define your story. You can pause. You can reframe. You can choose a wiser response. Let's say you're struggling at work. You've been making mistakes. Your boss is constantly on your back. You feel like you're drowning. One mindset might say, "I'm failing. I'm not cut out for this." But there's another voice available to you, one that asks, "What can I learn here? How can I grow through this challenge?" Maybe you've had that voice in your head whispering, "Maybe I'm just not good enough." It's a thought that sinks in quietly, but holds you down with surprising strength. That, right there, is a fixed mindset, a mental loop that locks you into self-doubt and convinces you that your worth is tied to your current performance. But what if you challenged that voice? What if, instead of spiraling into defeat, you said, "I'm learning. Every mistake is teaching me something"? What if you believed that the pressure you feel isn't a sign of failure, but a sign that you're stretching, growing, expanding? That's a growth mindset, and it allows you to transform even your hardest moments into powerful stepping stones. The Stoics knew this well. To them, every challenge was not a curse, but a chance to practice virtue, to strengthen patience, build resilience, and deepen wisdom. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor strengthens the body." That means the frustrations, the setbacks, the long nights spent wondering if it's all worth it, those moments aren't wasted. They're training you. Just like lifting weights breaks the muscle so it can rebuild stronger, life challenges the mind so it can grow tougher. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. Mastering your mindset doesn't happen overnight. It's not a flip of a switch. It's a daily discipline. So, where do you start? Start with your inner voice. Begin to notice the way you talk to yourself. Are you constantly feeding your mind fear, doubt, negativity? Or are you consciously choosing to plant thoughts of courage, clarity, and growth? Because here's the truth. Your mind is like a garden. What you plant is what grows. If you're constantly sowing seeds of anxiety and fear, don't be surprised when they start to take root. But if you intentionally nurture thoughts of strength, presence, and purpose, you create an inner landscape where resilience thrives. Another powerful practice. Stay rooted in the present moment. So much of our stress comes from replaying the past or trying to fast forward into the future. But the only place you can ever truly act is right now. So the next time your mind starts racing, ask yourself, what can I do right now to move one step forward? That simple question can stop the spiral and bring you back to center. And then comes the hardest part, patience. Especially when you've poured your heart into something meaningful, when you've shown up, done the work, checked all the boxes, but nothing seems to be happening. That frustration, It's real. The world tells us that if we're not seeing results instantly, something must be wrong. That success should be fast, visible, and linear. But the truth, life doesn't follow our timeline. It unfolds in its own rhythm. And when we try to force progress, we often end up with disappointment instead of peace. The Stoics understood this better than most. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." Think about that for a moment. Anything truly meaningful, wisdom, strength, success, doesn't appear overnight. These things are built slowly, layer by layer, experience by experience. Just like you can't rush a tree to grow by tugging on its branches. You can't rush life to deliver your dreams before you're ready. Timing has a rhythm. And when you learn to trust that rhythm, you release yourself from so much unnecessary tension and pressure. Picture a young artist quietly painting in a small studio. They have dreams of recognition, of sharing their work with the world. Day after day, they show up, pouring their soul into every canvas. But the praise, the breakthrough, it doesn't come, not yet. In that space of waiting, they face a choice. Give in to frustration, doubt their path, maybe even quit, or trust the process. Trust that every piece of work is a stepping stone. That every unnoticed effort is preparing them for something bigger, even if they can't see it right now. And here's the truth. Those who keep going, even without applause, often find themselves arriving, quietly, steadily, exactly where they were always meant to be. The problem is, we live in a culture that glorifies speed. Fast food, fast news, fast success. We've been taught to believe that if something doesn't happen instantly, it isn't happening at all. But some of life's most valuable gifts, real relationships, deep personal growth, mastery of a skill, they're slow to bloom. They can't be rushed. They need time. They need you to be present through the process. Socrates once said, "To do is to be." What he meant is powerful. That growth isn't just about reaching the destination. It's about becoming the kind of person who earns it along the way. If you're constantly obsessing over when something will happen, you miss out on the much more important question. Who are you becoming while you wait? But let's be honest, waiting is hard. So how do you stay patient when it feels like you're standing still? The Stoics offer a simple but powerful answer. Focus on what you can control. You can't control the timing, but you can control your attitude. You can keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep learning, keep becoming. And perhaps most importantly, you can trust deeply that what's meant for you won't pass you by. It won't arrive a second too early or too late. It will come when you're ready, not when you're desperate. One of the greatest gifts of Stoic philosophy is this quiet but fierce lesson. Acceptance is not defeat, it's strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together." In other words, stop resisting the flow of life. Embrace it. If your progress feels slow, if the reward hasn't arrived yet, maybe it's because you're still in the process of becoming the person who's truly ready for it. So ask yourself, are you waiting or are you preparing? Have you ever noticed that when you desperately chase something, whether it's a job, a relationship, or success, it always seems to slip further out of reach? The more anxious and grasping your energy, the more it feels like the universe pulls back. It's almost as if desperation sends out a signal, and life responds by stepping away. But when you act from a place of calm confidence, something shifts. You stop chasing, and instead, you begin attracting. There's a powerful difference between the two. One comes from fear, the other from strength. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, clarity must come before action. When you know who you are, what matters to you, and what kind of life you want to live, your actions become purposeful, not panicked. Desperate action is rooted in fear. Fear of missing out, fear of being left behind, fear that you're not enough. But when you act with intention, with grounded confidence, you move from a place of clarity. You're no longer trying to force things into existence. You're simply aligning with what's already possible. Let's look at an example. Imagine two people both searching for a job. The first one is in a panic. They blast out applications to every opening they find, even ones they don't truly want. Each rejection feels personal. They second-guess themselves constantly, their energy scattered, anxious, unclear. Now imagine the second person. They take a different approach. They know their value, their strengths. They apply mindfully, tailoring each application with care. They prepare diligently, not frantically, and remain open to timing. They don't obsess over every outcome. Which one do you think a company would rather hire? The person who's calm, focused, and composed, or the one who's desperate for anything that sticks? The same is true in relationships. If you approach someone from a place of fear, fear of being alone, fear of not being loved, you create imbalance from the start. But if you walk into a relationship already whole, not looking for someone to complete you, but to grow with you, that energy is magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who are secure in themselves, not those grasping for reassurance. Aristotle once spoke of eudaimonia, a state of living with purpose and fulfillment. He believed true happiness doesn't come from chasing external achievements. It comes from aligning your daily actions with your deepest values and virtues. So ask yourself, are you reacting out of fear, or are you moving with purpose? Because when you start showing up with clarity, acting from wisdom, from integrity, from intention, the outcomes begin to take care of themselves. And what once felt out of reach begins to find its way to you when you move with intention. Instead of panic, something remarkable happens. You begin making better decisions. You stop wasting time and energy on distractions that don't truly align with your core values or your bigger vision. Think of it like a game of chess. A beginner plays reactively, responding impulsively, driven by nerves and uncertainty. Every move is based on fear of losing. But a seasoned chess master, they play with foresight, with calm. They think ahead, see the broader pattern, and make deliberate, strategic moves. Life isn't much different when you're constantly reacting from fear of missing out, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. You're likely to make short-sighted choices that only create more chaos. But when you pause, take a step back, and act from clarity and calm, you begin to move steadily toward the life you truly want. So how do you shift from acting out of desperation to acting with purpose? First, get clear on your why. Ask yourself honestly, am I doing this because I deeply desire it, or because I'm afraid of what might happen if I don't? That one question alone can change everything. Second, slow down. Desperation always rushes. Purpose takes its time. Instead of making decisions in a panic, allow yourself space to reflect, to breathe, to choose wisely, not react wildly. And finally, trust yourself. You don't need to control everything. You don't need to scramble or force things into place. When your actions come from alignment and confidence, the right opportunities begin to flow to you without you needing to chase them. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." So much of our panic and neediness is born not from what's actually happening, but from the fears we invent in our own minds. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if this is my only chance? But here's the truth. You are more capable. Then you realize you're not meant to beg for what's already aligned with your path. The more you act with grounded purpose and self-belief, the more life starts to meet you halfway. Have you ever felt drained from trying to control every little detail? You make plans. You push harder. You strategize, trying to force people to act a certain way or events to unfold in a specific order. But no matter how hard you try, things don't go as expected. And instead of feeling more in control, you end up more anxious, more exhausted. Why? Because the tighter you grip, the more life slips through your fingers. Here's the paradox. The moment you release that need to control, everything begins to flow. The Stoics saw this with absolute clarity. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. What does that mean? It means true freedom doesn't come from micromanaging everything around you. It doesn't come from bending the world to your will. It comes from letting go of what was never yours to control in the first place. And when you do that, you don't become passive. You become powerful. Because the more you try to manage things like other people's opinions, the future, or the past, the more you drain your energy. You're constantly reacting, constantly tense, constantly trying to solve problems that don't have solutions, at least not ones that belong to you. But when you shift your focus back to what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your mindset, you reclaim your power. And everything changes. Take relationships, for example. Have you ever found yourself trying to change someone? Maybe it was a friend, a partner, or even a family member. You wanted them to be more understanding, more supportive, more in tune with your needs or values. But no matter how much effort you put in, they stayed the same. Frustrating, isn't it? That's because people aren't projects. They're not ours to shape or fix. You can express yourself clearly. You can set healthy boundaries. You can decide who deserves a place in your life. But you cannot and should not force someone to change. The more you push, the more resistance you create. But when you let go of that need, something liberating happens. You free yourself from the endless cycle of disappointment and give the relationship space to unfold naturally, with mutual respect. This principle applies far beyond personal relationships. It's just as true in your pursuit of success. Many people believe that pushing harder is always the answer, that if they just hustle more, control more variables, obsess over every detail, they'll reach their goals faster. But there's a crucial distinction between effort and control. Effort is essential, but when effort crosses over into obsession, when stress builds, when you fear failure, when you try to micromanage every moment, you create resistance. You stop flowing with life and start fighting it. Seneca said it best: fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant. What does that mean? It means when you resist the natural flow of events, you invite unnecessary struggle. But when you align your actions with what you can control and trust the rest to unfold, you invite ease and momentum. Picture this. You're preparing for an important job interview. You've done your research. You've practiced. You're ready. But instead of walking in with trust in your preparation, your mind starts spiraling. What if they ask something I don't know? What if I mess up? What if I don't get the job? That spiral pulls you out of presence and into anxiety. Suddenly, instead of walking in with calm and clarity, you're tense, distracted, second-guessing every move. And ironically, the harder you try to nail it, the more likely you are to stumble. But what if you paused, took a breath, reminded yourself, I've done my part, now I release the rest? That one mental shift brings you back to the moment. And in that space of calm presence, your best self finally has a chance to shine. So how do you actually practice letting go of control? First, start with awareness. Recognize what is and what isn't within your power. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. Some things are ours to influence, others are not. And pouring energy into the latter, that only leads to frustration and burnout. Once you've identified what's within your control and learned to let go of the rest, the next step is even more powerful: acceptance and trust. Life won't always unfold the way you imagined. That's just reality. But here's the thing, just because it doesn't go according to your plan doesn't mean it's going wrong. Sometimes the detour is the real path. Sometimes the setback is the setup for something far better. So instead of resisting, practice accepting what is. Let go of the belief that life must look a certain way for you to be okay. And perhaps most importantly, build trust. Not just trust in life, but trust in yourself. Trust that no matter what happens, even if it's not what you hoped for, you'll be able to handle it. How different would your life feel if you believed that? Now think about this. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to attract success, opportunity, even happiness almost effortlessly? It's like the world just opens up for them. What's their secret? It's not magic, and it's not luck. It's mindset, the way they think, the energy they bring, the way they carry themselves and interpret life. It creates a magnetic field around them, one that draws good things in. Meanwhile, others work just as hard, sometimes harder, but always feel like they're struggling. Like no matter what they do, they can't quite catch up. They focus on what they lack and unknowingly push opportunities away. It's not a mystery. It's the energy you show up with. And the Stoics knew this long before modern psychology put it into studies and articles. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." What does that mean? That real abundance doesn't come from endlessly chasing or hoarding. It comes from the mindset that says, I already have enough. I am enough. When you stop operating from a place of scarcity, when you stop obsessing over what's missing, you open space for more to enter your life naturally. Picture this. Two people walk into the same room. One of them is focused entirely on what they don't have. They scan the room, comparing themselves to others, feeling behind, feeling like they'll never catch up. Their posture is tense. Their words are laced with doubt. That energy, it repels. Now the second person walks in with a completely different energy. They believe they already have enough skill, enough value, enough time to grow. They speak with confidence, engage openly, and build connections with ease. And, as a result, doors open for them that the first person never even noticed. So what was the difference? It wasn't talent. It wasn't opportunity. It was the mindset. One lived in scarcity, the other in abundance. And here's what's even more powerful. This doesn't just apply to money or career. It's true in relationships, in happiness, even in how you experience time. If you believe there's never enough love, never enough support, never enough kindness in the world, your mind will look for proof to back that up. And you'll find it. But what happens when you change what you're looking for? And when you shift your focus from what you lack to what you already have? You start to notice something extraordinary. Opportunities begin to appear everywhere. Suddenly, you see kindness in strangers, potential in conversations, and blessings hiding in places you once overlooked. It's not that the world changed. You did. You're seeing it through a new lens, one shaped by abundance instead of scarcity. Psychologist William James once said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." What you think consistently becomes the framework through which you experience your reality. So, if your mindset is constantly focused on what's missing, what you don't have, haven't achieved, or aren't yet, it's like putting on blinders. Your brain will zero in on lack, and you'll keep reinforcing that narrative. But what if you chose a different story? What if you trained your mind to recognize what's working, what's growing, what's possible? It's not some mystical trick, it's perception. And perception is powerful, because what you focus on expands. Imagine two musicians trying to make it in a tough industry. The first one is operating from scarcity. They're convinced there aren't enough chances, that the market is overcrowded, that failure is just waiting around the corner. Every rejection they face becomes confirmation of their fears. And what happens? They start shrinking. They stop experimenting. They hesitate to take creative risks. Fear drives their every move, and that fear becomes self-fulfilling. Now, picture the second musician. This one chooses abundance. They believe there's room for them, even if the path isn't easy. They interpret each no not as failure, but as redirection. Every challenge becomes fuel. They keep trying, keep connecting, keep showing up, and little by little, momentum builds. Why? Because they weren't led by fear. They were led by trust and bold action. So how can you start embodying that same energy of abundance in your life? First, begin with gratitude, not as a cliche, but as a daily practice. Instead of fixating on what's missing, train yourself to notice what's already good, already here, already working. When you recognize value in the present, you draw more value in. Second, walk through life as if you already have enough. That doesn't mean you stop growing, it means you move with confidence. Rather than desperation, you act from wholeness, not from fear of lack. And finally, let go of attachment. That tight grip you have on specific outcomes. Loosen it. Trust that what's meant for you will come not through frantic effort, but through alignment. Alignment between your values, your actions, and your energy. Let me ask you this. Have you ever found yourself obsessing over a goal, pushing, grinding, doing everything right, and still felt like you were getting nowhere? You're running in circles, frustrated, wondering, why isn't this working? We've been taught that success means constant hustle, that if you want something badly enough, you must chase it without pause. But here's a truth most people never realize. The Stoics understood this with incredible clarity. Seneca once said, "Effort and patience will achieve more than force and anxiety." And isn't that the opposite of what we're often taught? Our culture glorifies the grind. We're constantly told to hustle harder, push further, never slow down. But the reality is, success doesn't come from relentless force, it comes from intention, balance, and knowing when to let go. When you try to force outcomes, you create friction. You block the very flow you're trying to access. Think of it like pulling at a tightly wound knot. The more aggressively you yank, the tighter and more tangled it becomes. Or take something as simple as sleep. You can't force yourself to fall asleep, right? The more you try, the more restless you become. But the moment you surrender, relax, breathe, and stop clinging to the outcome, sleep arrives naturally. The same principle applies to your goals, your relationships, and your growth. You must take action, yes, but then you must also allow. You must trust. Picture a farmer planting seeds. They till the soil, plant with care, water regularly, and ensure the crops get sunlight. But after that, they wait. They don't dig up the soil each day demanding the seeds grow faster. That would destroy the process. Instead, they trust in nature's timing. And eventually, the harvest comes. Life is no different. You prepare. You show up. You give your best. But then you let go. You release the timeline. You stop micromanaging the outcomes. This mindset shift applies everywhere. Let's talk relationships. Have you ever met someone who tries too hard? Constant messages, constant need for reassurance. Their energy feels heavy, almost desperate, and that energy ironically pushes people away. Now think of someone who is grounded, calm, interested, but not grasping, confident, but not controlling. That person naturally attracts others. Why? Because they're not forcing anything. They're aligned, and that alignment creates space for connection. Or consider your career. Maybe you've been pushing non-stop, sending countless emails, chasing every lead, trying to make something happen. But despite all that effort, progress feels stuck. What if, instead of panicking, you paused? What if you trusted that your preparation, your consistency, your excellence is already creating momentum behind the scenes? Taking smart action and releasing obsessive control aren't opposites, they're partners. You do the work. You prepare, refine, and commit. And then you surrender the outcome. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote in Meditations, "Do what you must, and let what happens happen." That's what it means to live with aligned action. You control your inputs, your focus, your habits, your mindset, but you release attachment to the external result. Because no matter how well you plan, no matter how hard you push, some things will always be beyond your reach. And the more you fight that truth, the more anxious and exhausted you become. So how do you live this principle each day? First, get clear on your intention. Know what you're aiming for and take purposeful steps in that direction. Second, release your grip on timing. Accept that the when and how are often not up to you. Let go of the urge to rush the process. And third, build trust in yourself. Even if things don't go exactly as planned, you will adjust. You will evolve. You will uncover new doors you hadn't even seen before. At the end of the day, life isn't about controlling every outcome. It's about mastering your inner world. When you shift your focus from chasing to aligning, from forcing to flowing, everything begins to fall into place, just as it's meant to. The Stoics understood this wisdom centuries ago. Now, it's your turn to live it. So take a deep breath. Let go. Trust the process. And remember, real power, it's already within you. If this video resonated with you, there's another one on the screen right now that dives even deeper into Stoic wisdom. Click it and keep learning. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a new insight. Thanks for being part of Stoic Capsule. Until next time, stay grounded, stay present, and keep walking the path with courage.